everybody. It is Thursday night, which means it's time for some shop talk. I'm Josh Olive with Haven Comics. So stick around after this awesome intro. And just like that, I'm back. Isn't that remarkable? Tonight's going to be a little bit of a different show because Alan is having car trouble, and last I heard was stranded on the side of the road somewhere, which is not someplace you'd want to be. But yeah, Alan is not going to be with us tonight, so it's just me by my lonesome. So if you don't leave comments in the chat and talk with me, this is going to be very boring for both of us. Uh, what's up, Tots? Hope you're doing well, brother. Uh, if I saw correctly, you picked up that Alan Moore book today. Looking forward to hearing what you thought about that one. That was it's a great big honking heck of a book, and it looks really interesting. But I have not had a chance to sit down and read it yet, so I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, I got a stack of comics here to talk about, and we do have a guest coming on the show next week that we're very excited about. So looking forward to some discussions there. Again, we will not have an Alan tonight, so if you want any kind of conversation besides just me talking, the other person putting in that conversation is going to have to be you. So hit me up in the chat. Let me know what you're thinking about, what you want to talk about, all that stuff. And that will help guide things. Now, all that said, I suspect that this is going to be a shorter show than normal because we all know Alan is a big talker and can never shut him up. So anyway, here is the stack of books that I got to talk about today. And we're going to start off with the one that hit me the hardest. Honestly, it was unexpected. There was not really anything that led me into this. This series has been excellent from the get-go. Tom King is doing a great job on it, and that is Wonder Woman number one, or not number one. Number one was over a year ago. But Wonder Woman number 14, that's the cover. I'll come over here. First of all, what DC is doing with these logo covers for their All-In initiative, first of all, let's a couple things. One, the old school DC logo, the old DC Bullet logo is back, and that's awesome. That makes me very happy. Two, these covers with the logos, just the simple character on the white background with their logo. These are very, very well done, and I like that in general. But that particular issue, when I say that issue hit hard, I mean, in so many ways, it hit really, really hard. If you're not reading Wonder Woman, you're like, what is he even talking about? If you are reading Wonder Woman, it still kind of comes out of left field. Still just a shocker. And it'll rip your heart out, but it'll also, in that way that Tom King does, there's kind of this melancholy flavor to it where it's sad and it hurts. But there's also this thread of hope woven into it. Really, really fascinating book. And you're not wrong, Daniel. They work great. I noticed that the entire Ultimate Universe line is using the white covers. And it makes them stand out on the shelf. It gives them a uniform look. You know what you're looking at when you see them. Great stuff all the way around. Really, really like it. If you back in the Golden Age, a lot it was yellow backgrounds. Golden Age comics used yellow backgrounds a lot, and I don't know what prompted that choice. Why yellow? But they stood out on the shelves. They were fantastic, and it works really, really well. But yes, why they don't use more white covers, I don't know. But in this issue of Wonder Woman, I don't know, I'm always torn between how much detail to go into on these things because it's just came out and I don't want to spoil it for people. But this issue, has a very, it features the end of one character and the beginning of another. One character is someone that we have known in the DC universe for a long, 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 long time. And the beginning of the new character is someone who's only recently really come onto the scene, but we didn't know where they came from, and now we do. This is one of the most emotionally powerful comic books I've read in a long, 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 long time. Just an incredible story, beautifully told, and Daniel Sampier's artwork continues to be just jaw dropping. There's no big action sequences in here. There's no huge battle, nothing like that at all. But the emotion that's conveyed here, the simplicity with the way it's conveyed, and some of the things that you see from the antagonist's perspective are really interesting and really inform the character of Diana too. But on the whole, if you have any interest whatsoever in the character of Trinity that has shown up in the past year or so, this is a must-have issue. If you are a fan of good comics with heart that really demonstrate what you can do from a storytelling perspective in this medium, this is a must-read. If you've not read anything else, it doesn't matter. You learn what happens here. You learn about how things go very wrong for one character. You see how things come about for the other character. That's just a phenomenal comic book. This is one of the most powerful comic books I have read in a long, long time, possibly ever. Really hits you right in the feels, and you should read this comic. My 2 cents. Now, as I said earlier, we do not have Alan tonight. He had some car trouble, and last I heard, he was having to push his car up the ramp on the interstate. So he has other fish to fry. He won't be here, which is unfortunate. So if you guys want anything other than just me talking to myself, you're going to have to chime in the chat. What's up, Bill? Good to see you. Really good writing for the big 3. Now, it's usually considered the big 2. I'm going to assume that you are including Image as the 3 in that big 3. And if so, you're not wrong. I would say DC is absolutely firing, maybe not on all cylinders because they got a whole lot of books out, then I don't read all of them. But a lot of what they are putting out, their top tier books, are well worth the name top tier books. They are fantastic, excellently written. Marvel has a handful of titles that are just excellently written right now. And they have a whole lot that are not. But what they do have that's really good is really good. And Image certainly is hit or miss in the way that Image is always hit or miss. But some of the things they have going on between Skybound and what they're doing with G.I. Joe, Transformers, Void Rivals, all that is excellent. And then Geiger or a Ghost Machine and what they're doing with Geiger, with Junkyard Joe, with Redcoat. These are some really good books. Rook, and I'm excited to see where those all go. So you're not wrong. I assume you're counting Image as the 3rd of that big 3, and you are not wrong at all. Moving on to the next comic on my list, another one that I got to talk about, and another one that, like, I'm starting to get to the point where I really want more action in this book. Ultimate Spider-Man number 10. There's not a lot of action. There's a whole lot of meetings between Gwen and MJ and Harry and Peter. There's a whole lot of things going on that's not Spider-Man. They're great. They're really well written, but they're not Spider-Man. And I'm really getting to where I want to see some more Spider-Man being Spider-Man. This issue is not Spider-Man being Spider-Man by any stretch of the imagination. This issue is almost exclusively focused on that weird buddy cop team up of Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson. And frustrating as it is because I want to see more Spider-Man, this is fantastic. I mean, holy smokes, this is so good. Watching the two of them playing off each other as they go into interviews and they just put people in a corner and they push them to find more information, all this. Oh my god, it's so beautifully executed. It's smart. It's it's zippy. It moves along. It doesn't just stagnate. It's not just boring story. Uh, really, 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 really good. Holy smokes! Look at that. We have an Aaron Michaels from Atlanta, fresh off the set there at Peacemaker season 2. Rock on, brother. I hope all is going well. Please, y'all chime into the chat because I don't have Alan with me tonight, so it's just my lonesome. Yes, to answer your question, Daniel, there is a new Swamp Thing title. I forget what it's called, but it's coming out very soon, and it looks very interesting. I'll dig into that and see what I can find on it. I think it might be in the current previews. I believe it is. So let me take a look here. If you guys don't keep a previews handy at your house, I just don't even know what you're doing. Um, why wouldn't you do that? So let's see. Swamp Thing, Swamp Thing. I'll sing a song while I'm talking about Swamp Thing. Bet your bottom dollar that it's Swamp Thing. I want to say it's like Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy or something like that. Um, but the creative team on it looked really good. It's got to be in here somewhere. Then again, maybe not. Green Lantern Dark. I do like that DC can laugh at themselves. They have a book coming out in the Christmas time frame called DC's Batman Smells Robin Laid an Egg #1. That amuses me. That amuses me probably more than it should. But we're all still 12 years old on the inside, and we all think fart jokes are funny. So I'm allowed to think that that's a funny book. Okay, I'm not seeing it in this one, but I have certainly seen the solicitation information. Um, and there is a new Swamp Thing book coming out. I will find that somewhere, somehow, and see if I can get that to you, Daniel. Would like to see him in the new Absolute Universe. I do not disagree. I think Swamp Thing could be a major character in that universe. I think he could be very interesting in that universe, um, given the way that they shape things and the way that that universe is broken down. And I've got a big segment I want to talk about Absolute Superman here in a minute because I did get the opportunity to read a retailer preview of Absolute Superman the other day. Wow. Holy smokes. That blew my socks off in a way I really wasn't expecting. I've always liked the character of Superman. I've never liked Superman's stories. And I know that seems like an oddly disconcerting thing to say, but Superman is so powerful and they just kind of have to ratchet things up to a ridiculous level to really pose a threat against Superman most of the time. Or the stories just veer toward goofy, and that could be partly just when I grew up and I remember all those weird stories from the 70s where Superman was just being a jerk to people on the covers of books, and he's standing by while his pal Jimmy Olsen is having to get married to a gorilla, and all kinds of weird stuff like that. And Superman never really worked for me unless he was side by side with Batman. And it's not just because I like Batman. I think it's the juxtaposition of the two because Superman has the light and Batman is the shadow, and so they make each other better. Batman grounds Superman, and Superman gives Batman reason to be better than brooding and dismal. Um, So I will just jump right to it. Why beat around the bush? We can talk about some of these other things later. But this right here, guys, Absolute Superman. Uh, you pick up on a few things from this cover, right? He's younger. He's got the big mop of hair. There's something. The suit you can tell is different. You can see like the diagonal lines crossing on it, and there's something. I don't know. There's something brooding and uh, unhappy about him, right? He's not up and away, sunglasses, haha. There's none of that happening here. And when you get into it, you're like, well, what's the cause of that? What's the rationale for that? And that's where I thought that was really cool. Hey, Keith, what's happening, man? Um, his costume's way better than Batman's. Well, his costume, you don't see the half of it on that cover. His costume is very, very different from previous incarnations. And if we talk about those fundamental things, like the fundamentals of the character are not being changed, and I think that's critical to the success of the Absolute Universe because they have to be quintessentially Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince and Clark Kent, Kal-El. They have to be, or they don't work as those characters. But the foundational elements that those characters are built on, which I would have said at one time, and that time might have been as recently as like a month or two ago, that those are foundational elements of their characters and are also critical to their characters. But I will, gladly eat crow here. I was wrong. Um, you can take away those things without changing the fundamental nature of the character. Uh, in the case of Superman, the fundamental thing that they take away is kind of twofold, but uh, makes it really, really interesting. Uh, you got a good eye there. You're not wrong. There is his suit is it's not like the black Spider-Man suit or anything, but there is something going on with his suit. You're not wrong. That's a good eye. Um, but the foundational thing that they changed with Superman isn't even really Superman himself. It is before that. It's with his parents, and I guess technically, really before that, it's the entire Kryptonian society. They change a fundamental element of Kryptonian society. They infuse it with a caste system that's really very clearly delineated, and you have to wear the symbol of your caste that shows where you belong, right? So who gets to tell you what to do and whatnot. And in the case of this world, Kal-El's parents, who were in the history we know, they were top tier people, the scientists. Well, we see the end coming and we're going to do all these things. In this world, they are the lowest of the low. That big S, that ain't a symbol of pride. That's the lowest of the low. And that's an interesting thing to change. Um, because what does that do to Superman's character? The way he grows up, how he perceives the world, how he looks at people. Um, it's fascinating and it's brilliantly written. And then you see what's going on, and it becomes a very different character without changing those fundamental elements that make Clark Kent Clark Kent. He still has that hope and positivity, but boy, is he not starting from a place that he's not starting in Metropolis or Kansas where everything is smiling and happy. That's just not there. Um, so that wholesome upbringing he had that really, you know, built on the legacy that his parents left him. What if he didn't have that? And again, I would have always said that was just critical to his character. And as it is, the way this book is written, it's not. It's It's a foundational element, but not a fundamental element. And I think that's really fascinating that you can take and play with these things that way. And to the point that you made earlier, Daniel, like an absolute Swamp Thing, what would they fundamentally change in Swamp Thing's background, and how would that impact what he is and how he works in the universe? I'm really curious about that, and I think that would be an interesting exercise to find that out. Um, but in the case of Superman, again, I gotta say, what a powerful story! What a well-written story! Uh, so really, really enjoyed it. So if I were to rank, because why not? I've read Absolute Batman, I've read Absolute Wonder Woman, I've read Absolute Superman. If I were to rank them from how good was that first issue, I think Absolute Batman was stellar. Uh, it surprised me. It did some interesting things. It revealed some interesting things. We still have a lot to learn, and we still about the character and about the world, but it revealed some interesting things, and it was a pretty action packed story. There was a lot going on there. Uh, Absolute Wonder Woman, I think, is a bit of a slower burn. It didn't hit as hard right out of the gate in the first issue as Batman did. Uh, I think it's got the premise that they came up with, the change that they made, I think is going to be a harder row to hoe. It's going to be a more difficult story to tell than Batman or Superman. And I think that shows in the first issue and the way that they chose to approach it. It was good, it was solid, but it didn't just like knock my socks off and wow me, right? And Absolute Superman, I think, is somewhere in between those, but closer to Batman than to Wonder Woman. And I think uh, it, it's just beautifully done. It's a fantastic story. So if you're picking up all of the Absolute titles, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. That's just it. He does kind of have a chip on his shoulder, um, and kind of not. Uh, but he definitely does kind of have a chip on his shoulder, and but it's not like he's just lashing out at people or anything like that. Not by any means. Uh, and one of the interesting things is he does not have full control over. I'm trying to think of a way to say this. Over his power yet, and the way that things, what he's capable of, what he's not capable of. He hasn't got all that sorted yet, and that's also interesting, and that plays a role. You see some of the names of other characters who are revealed in Absolute Superman #1, and some of the roles that they play, and that spells very interesting things for the future too. So yeah, Absolute Superman #1. Uh, really excited about it. I will say this: when I read that preview, I increased my order for the store, and not insignificantly. So I ordered it darn near at Absolute Batman levels, and it's really really good. I would encourage anybody to pick it up and read it, whether you're a Superman fan or not a Superman fan. If you like good comics, it's a great comic. It's well worth reading, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Uh, Again, going back to this, Jonathan Hickman, this is phenomenal. This is amazing, but please give us more of Spider-Man being Spider-Man. We all want to see that. We don't just want a family drama all the time. Right? So come on, brother. Throw us a bone here. Next up, Marvel's annual foray into October with Crypt of Shadows. And if you're thinking that's always just a few short stories and nobody really cares, why are you telling us about that? Well, you're not wrong. Let's see here. What are you saying? You know, You're absolutely right. It's literally been decades since I've been excited to pick up a Justice League book, and I'm very excited for this one. Um, with Mark Waid doing the writing, I think it's going to be top notch. The lead into it was great. The whole vibe of the DC universe right now is just on point. They are doing phenomenal storytelling, and it makes me happy. But back to this. So, why should you care about Crypt of Shadows? It's got multiple short stories, some of which are better than others. That's always the case. The opening short story, if you've been watching Agatha all along, um, starts with Agatha, as she is known at this particular place where she is, Lady Harkness. Uh, it's an interesting little story. The second story in here introduces a character. It's the first appearance of a character uh, who, in comics, who first appeared in the Werewolf by Night Halloween special that came out last year on Disney Plus. So the big burly blonde-haired guy, his first appearance in comics. He looks weird. The art is not the best, but that's his first appearance. That's him. He showed up, and he's here. Then there's a weird story in here that I think is kind of my favorite one, where essentially it says what happens if a mosquito bites Man Thing and something happens there and it runs around and infects a whole lot of other things. So you see the mosquito flying around after it bites Man Thing, and it's like got the green goop like starting to grow on it. And then a bat eats it, and then the bat kind of falls out of the sky, and a crocodile eats it, and it just starts getting worse, and things get really bad. Um, and of all things, this is a crossover story between Man Thing and Namor. Man Thing and the Submariner. What a bizarre story. But this scene here, where they put an anchor through Swamp Thing and drop him into the ocean, it's like, what in the world is going on? That's an interesting little story. But if you want to pick up a first appearance of a character, and then it's got a nice Werewolf by Night story here at the end. So that's good stuff. But if you want to pick up a first appearance of a character who showed up in the Werewolf by Night special, and pick up a couple of other good reads, this is a solid little book to do it. And it kind of, they do a Crypt of Shadows book every year now, but that was a fun little pickup to read. This next book, all I can say is, y'all, you gotta just. This is the Stephen Platt cover. Welcome back to Moon Knight, Stephen Platt. Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, #1. Man, this is so good. Jed McKay, the dude is just killing it. The bulk of this story, there's two things going on. There's a detective who is interviewing an older school detective and saying, tell me everything you know about Moon Knight. And she makes a good point that Moon Knight could very well be considered a terrorist and a cult leader. Like, he's got his religion, he's got his midnight mission that if you go in, you don't come out. He's got his weird group of followers, a couple of vampires, and they're, as they call it here, they're his fallen celebrity, a has-been Avenger, Tigra. And there's even a out-and-out villain with the 8-Ball there. So that's the one story that's going on. It's the one detective trying to get to the bottom of things with the other detective. And then there's Moon Knight. He's dressed as Mr. Knight. He's wading through a bunch of bad guys, mostly just walking through them. they'll occasionally be because he wants to talk to somebody. And he goes and he says, "Hey, yeah." He finally gets to the person he wants to talk to, um, and he says, "Hey, I know you guys are pushing this drug. This drug is like immediately um, addictive. Like you take even by accident, you get hit with it one time and you're addicted, and you'll do anything to get the next hit." Uh, and he said, "So you're gonna need to get out of here with this. This is your last warning." And it's well done. It's very well done. And again, somebody says, and this kind of ties to one of my favorite Moon Knight moments of all time, where somebody was giving him grief. He's wearing all of his hood and cowl and all that stuff, and somebody gives him grief and says, "Hey, um, you're out mostly at night, and you're fighting all these bad guys, and you're wearing white, and they can see you coming. Plus, you make a great target for people with guns. Why don't you change your costume? You're an idiot." And his answer back to them was, "A priest does not change his vestments." And you're like, okay, I never thought of it that way exactly, but okay, that's cool. And I dig that. In this case, somebody gives him grief again over his costume. And his response is just, "I like it when they can see me coming." I just thought that was great. "I like it when they can see me coming." Um, and so he has revealed himself here for sure. And then there's a cool twist at the end. I won't go into it here, but there's a very cool twist at the end that sets up where the story is going and kind of how it's going to get there. And that's pretty cool. It's a great. It doesn't really matter if you've read the previous iterations of Moon Knight, because this has all been one consecutive book. They've just changed the name on it a few times, kind of following the arc of the story. It doesn't matter if you've read the previous 39 issues or not. This is a great place to jump on, and it's a great story in the offing. I really recommend this. Fantastic book. Uh, Beautifully told. And again, as you pointed out earlier, Daniel, it's got a great white cover, so that's cool. This one, I'll be honest with you, I have not read this one yet, which I read the Ash Can a month or so back, and we talked about it on here, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Exorcism at 1600 pen. The whole premise being demons in the White House, and how do you get rid of those? What is the ramifications of that? What kind of doom does that spell for everybody? And it's not good. But yeah, really, really interesting stuff. So I haven't read this one yet, so I can't really comment on it. I got enough out of the Ash Can to want to read more. So if that kind of storyline sounds interesting to you, pick it up. We got it. Here it is. If you're not reading Transformers, I don't know what to tell you. It's what 13 issues in. It's really, really good. Daniel Warren Johnson has said he's going to be around for 24 issues. So there's another 9 issues after this. But this is from day one, from the first issue, where the first thing he does is have Starscream. I mean, it was 12 issues ago. This can't be a spoiler anymore. First thing he does out of the gate is Starscream gets awakened. And he stands up and he blows Bumblebee away. He pulls no punches. He continues to do that kind of thing here. Also, if you're not reading Transformers, but you're interested in the new G.I. Joe title, it might be of interest to you to note, yes, that is a Hiss tank. These are characters who have things to do with the G.I. Joe. The crossover stuff is going on, and you should You should read this book if you're interested in what's going on with GI Joe and how those are going to play well together in the sandbox. Yeah, you don't have to be a Legacy Transformers fan or anything like that. It's just good, solid storytelling. Really, really good. Fantastic stuff. Let's see here. I know we've talked about this, and I don't think anybody else cares but us, but Daredevil Woman Without Fear, this 4-issue limited series, has been really good, and it's been solid, and it continues here in this issue as well. So that's it. That's all 4 issues. If you're into that kind of thing, you should get that kind of thing. Yes, I would also hate that things did not go well for Skywarp. What's the other one? Oh yeah, if you're not reading Miles Morales Spider-Man, but you're interested in things that are happening with the character, in this issue he gets a new costume, and it is a vibranium costume. Now, how long will he keep it? Could be forever, could be a week. We don't know. But he does get a new costume in this issue, and it is a vibranium suit. And as we all know, sometimes new costumes get people really excited, and books go up. So if that's your kind of deal and you're interested in that, good thing for you to know. I will tell you, I read, kind of going back to what I said earlier about not being a big Superman fan, I read Action Comics number 1070 last week, and Action Comics is coming out weekly for the moment. And that story, it's written by Mark Waid. The story is fantastic. The artwork is gorgeous. And this issue continues that. In the previous issue, it starts with a scene where you see the projector to the Phantom Zone, and it develops a crack, and then the crack gets bigger, and then this bizarre. It's not a 3-headed person. It's like 3 people who all got joined together, like from the chin down to the chest. And they're insane, and they're screaming something in Kryptonian, and we don't know what they're saying. And everybody who tries to do anything to stop them, to put an end to what they're doing, they're just so powerful. Nothing seems to be working. And finally, you understand what they're saying, and they're saying, "Kill me." They're begging someone to kill them. And they're just lashing out because they're absolutely in tremendous pain. So they figure out what's going on there. They go through all this stuff. And then Superman is like, I don't know what's going on, but I've got to go to the Phantom Zone to check this out and see what I can do. So that's the end of the previous issue, is him going to the Phantom Zone. And things are, his arrival is not going to be an easy one when he gets there. They make that pretty clear. But this issue is, he is in the Phantom Zone, and he is trying to get to the bottom of what's going wrong and what's happening. And what a book. I've gone from, I haven't read a Superman book in literally decades, not since he died, so 30 years ago. And I just don't care. I haven't cared. DC has made me care about Superman, both in the regular continuity and in the Absolute universe. And good for them. Yeah, that's a good question. And it certainly is irritating from a retailer perspective, because I have no room to adjust, right? I have to order 4 issues worth of books all at the same time. And I can't say, well, this is actually going to turn out to be really popular, I should order more, or this is a total dud, I should drop my orders. I have no opportunity to do that. So that stinks from that perspective. I think it's a couple of things. I think part of it is building up some momentum for the new Superman movie, but I also think part of it is this has the makings of a long story, and I think they don't want to drag it out for a year or 6 months or what have you. I think they want to pull it all together, particularly for the people who just hang around and read the trades, right? So that they can get it pretty quick and see what's going on. So I think that's probably the impetus behind going weekly for this. Again, I'm not normally a fan of a weekly book unless I know really, really well what I'm ordering and what we're doing. But in this case, I should have known better. It's Mark Wade. It's Mark Wade playing in the sandbox, playing in the playground that he has helped create for a really long time. And he knows the ins and outs of all of it. And he knows how to play all these different characters off and against their strengths. And it's really, really good. Action Comics has been great. Start at 1070. It's a perfect jumping on point if you have not been reading Action Comics, and it's moving pretty quick. Um, and it's really, really good. So let me see what else. I know we talk about this one, but Epitaphs from the Abyss, the revival of the old EC line. This is more the straight up horror. The sci-fi horror is called Cruel Universe, and they have a new fantasy book coming out here in a month or two called Cruel Kingdoms, which is same concept, same idea. It's just in that fantasy setting. So these are all multiple stories. And as always, some are better than others, but this one's got 3 stories in it, and the artwork is really consistent. The stories are consistent. This is just a good kind of slice of life and then something terrible. Sometimes you can see it coming, sometimes you absolutely cannot. And it's rough. It's rough, and things turn out just in a way that you wouldn't expect. Uh, and then it leaves you flipping back through it, going, "How did we get here? Because that wasn't good. That was terrible." Uh, for me, I think the most powerful story in here. It's kind of like a 50s couple. They've been perfectly married, whatever. It's the perfect pearl is what it's called. Um, and everything starts off beautifully, but then he turns out to be horrible. Um, and it just goes over time. It gets worse and worse and worse. And she just adds a pearl to this pearl necklace every time something happens. It adds another pearl, adds another pearl, adds another pearl. Um, and you start to think, well, what is she doing? Uh, and so she just keeps doing it and adds pearl after pearl after pearl after pearl. And then you finally see her. She's wearing all these pearls and she just says, perfect. And then she gets up on the stool, on the chair, and she hangs herself with them. And so, like it always does in these books, it leaves you questioning, like, how did we get here? Uh, what what happens now? So it leaves you in a thinking spot rather than in a there's the answer. It leaves you thinking. That's part of what these books are designed to do. Very much in the vein of old EC comics. So pulling out the old EC imprint and being able to use that really appropriate for these books. And they have been consistently good. Really, really good. Let's see. Can't believe it took me this long to get to this. Destro number 5. Man, what a beautiful intro to the new G.I. Joe comic book. This sets up the power structure of Cobra in a really good way. If you've been following Destro and you've been watching what's going on. This has been excellent. And the ending is absolutely every bit as good as anything that has gone on before it. Really, 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 really good. And I enjoyed the ever loving heck out of this. Uh, there's a moment where you're expecting there to be a big showdown, and you're going, "Oh man, who is going to win? How is this going to go?" And it just doesn't go that way. And the rationale that Destro puts forward for why it didn't go that way, and why he opted to do something different, because he had every opportunity to end things in a lot of ways, and he just didn't take it. And when you read his rationale and why and all that, you're like, man, that's something. Uh, no, that's a solid ending, and it sets up some really great stuff for the new GI Joe series. Speaking of which, I have also read a preview of the GI Joe #1. Mostly, the last 2 pages of the preview book are redacted. Um, so that has got my mind whizzing with possibilities like what is going on here? Why could they not show me those 2 pages? So that's an interesting question. Some of the things that come out of it, uh, seeing, for example, seeing Baroness in action with the Joe team is so bizarre, but it's so brilliant at the same time. It's great. Uh, really, really enjoying it. And I've seen some people on forums who are saying, "Well, is the new GI Joe any good? It's got too many covers." I'm like, "It's got a lot of covers because GI Joe has been extremely popular the past couple years, and stores are excited about it. Readers are excited about it. The number of covers has nothing to do with the inside of the book and how good it is. Uh, it wouldn't matter what the book was. If it was popular, people would do exclusive covers for it. So you can't judge the book by that. But it is a very, very solid read, and I am very, very excited about where that's going. If you recall on the cover, you see the guy standing there in the suit, um, and you're kind of like, who is this guy? You know, you're trying to figure out, is that a Joe that you know, but he's not in the costume that you know him from? And is he, uh, is he somebody you already know? And no, he is not. He is a new character. His name is Risk. Um, and he looks like he's going to be an interesting character. I think he's going to be popular. You know, Outback is a highly unused character. Uh, he got his day in the sun a little bit in some of the special missions books, and in the, like, what, 62, 63 issues, number 61, 62, 63 of the original GI Joe series. Um, but Outback is a criminally underused character. I 100% agree with you. Alley Viper, uh, one of the weirder Vipers of the action figure line back in the day, but I have to say, also one of my favorites. I've got the GI Joe Classified of Alley Viper. Absolutely one of my favorites. I love this figure. I love this character, or this Viper. Always have, and is really, really well done. Um, yeah, no, I agree. Definitely wasn't enough. Outback is cool. I've got him right here also. So we could just create a story of Outback and Alley Viper if you want to. We could do the voices. Just, oh, yep. But yeah, no, absolutely criminally underused character in Outback. I always liked him. And hopefully, I mean, he hasn't been introduced yet in the Enertron universe, but hopefully he will be. And they will use him effectively. Let's see. A couple others here that I haven't been able to read yet. This is one of them. Uncanny X-Men #4. In the darkness waits Sarah Gaunt, and you see the tombstones. Remy LeBeau, Jubilation Lee. This is interesting. The character, some of the stuff that Gail Simone has done here Again, I haven't read X-Men in a long, long time because I got really tired of being burned uh, by promises that didn't pan out. But when you see things like this, and you just see Rogue getting her wrist just absolutely crushed, it makes you go, what's going on here? This is an interesting book. Um, Everybody's kind of being put through the ringer. So you also have panels like this where Wolverine's eyes have been put out. They haven't grown back yet. He's saying, hey, somebody point me to the bad guys while I can still stand up. Uh, Gail Simone is a great writer, and she knows what she's doing with the X books. If you want to read an X book, if you want to have that familiar, like, oh, there they are, I remember these characters, this is the book to read. Gail Simone's doing a great job on it. I would absolutely recommend reading that book. Uh, Next story arc picks up here. Again, I have not had a chance to read this one yet, but it is very high on the list. If y'all did not pick up Hyde Street #1, you need to get on that while you still can, because Hyde Street was so good. Will they? Oh no, they're going to pull in more. They're absolutely going to pull in more, but they're doing it in a smart way. They didn't want to just throw a massive team at you and be like, okay, here they all are, or they have a fan of a particular character looking like, oh, I saw him in the back of that panel there. Look, there's Outback right there. That's not cool. And they specifically said they want to introduce the characters in a smart way, and they want to make sure that every character gets their moment where you go, oh, dude, that's cool. Those guys are cool. What is up, Colby? How you doing, man? Haven't seen you in forever. Hope you're doing well. And Nate Saint in the house. Good stuff. But no, they've absolutely said they're going to introduce more characters, but they want each character to have their moment. They want them to be uh, not just some Easter egg in the background. They want it to be cool. And so, yeah, they are definitely going to expand the roster. They purposefully said they're going to hold off on introducing Snake Eyes because they don't want him to just pop in and suddenly overshadow everything else. And that's a smart play. I got to give him that. Everybody's talking about Absolute Batman because it's spectacular. We talked about Absolute Superman earlier tonight. That has not come out yet, but holy smokes, what a great book. I read a retailer preview of it, and it was great. Hyde Street. Hyde Street was outstanding. I could not agree more. What a fantastic book. It absolutely felt like 1950s and really pulled that whole Twilight Zone vibe in. Yeah, Colby, we just finished talking about Epitaphs from the Abyss right before you popped on. Didn't go into a ton of detail on it, but talking about the most recent issue. Also talked about Cruel Universe some, and then the upcoming fantasy-based title, which is Cruel Kingdoms. Same idea, just in that fantasy setting. So really enjoying the DC or the old EC label books. They've been really, really good. If you're reading Batman, the Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age, that's continuing in the same vein. Finally, get to meet Superman here, which is weird. It's bizarre, but we finally get to do it. Interesting book. It continues to be interesting. Uh, I don't know. It's just the next issue in, and it continues to be interesting. I'm enjoying that. This is the regular cover of Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu, by the way. Good cover, but that Stephen Platt cover made me happy. And then I know I've said it, and none of y'all are listening because our subscription numbers haven't changed a bit. But if you're not reading Spectacular Spider-Men, the ongoing tag up team up between Peter Parker and Miles Morales, you are missing out. This is what when you were a kid and you just picked up a comic book off the shelf and you read it and it was fun and it had cool characters and interesting action and zippy dialogue, and then you came back for the next issue and you got more of the same, that's what this has been. That's what this has been consistently from the jump. This has been a really fun book. Um, and I wish more people were picking it up. This is one I can recommend to kids. I can recommend to adults. Doesn't matter. This is just a really, really solid book, and it's a lot of fun. And what you can't really say about a whole lot of Spider-Man books lately that they're fun. This is fun. Just the back and forth between Peter Parker and Miles Morales is hysterical. Peter will make some joke, and Miles will be rolling his eyes, and he's like, "Man, that is so old. You sound so old." And Peter's like, "Yeah, I feel like I've been making that joke for 80 years, or 60 years." And it's because he literally has been. But it's nice little Easter eggs, fun stuff like that. It's a hoot. Um, but that's my stack of comics to talk through tonight. We also, of course, have previews. We can talk through that for a few minutes if you guys like. Um, but otherwise, I know we're going to wrap up a bit early because we just don't have the. When it's just by yourself, it's a lot of talking, which nobody's ever accused me of not doing a lot of talking. But we got the new Cable book. This is what the art will actually look like. But the new Cable book actually looks interesting. Um, Laura Kinney Wolverine gets her own series. I'm not that excited about that. This one I'm not interested particularly in, but I guess I will want to know who this new person is. But all new Venom, that's not Eddie Brock in the suit, and that's not white, that's gold. Which I'm wondering if that's going to tell me something, but I'm certainly not going to read all the Venom War stuff to find out. Um, I will be. Oh, no. Are you sad because you saw something cool in here and you're like, that's awesome? Or are you sad because I've been talking for an hour straight and we're probably going to wrap up soon and you want this to go on even longer? I can read so much into that. Uh, don't encourage me. My wife would be the first one to tell you that's a terrible idea. Um, in the vein of trying to have a Spider-Man book that people can actually recommend to kids and have fun with is the new your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because I have to just keep adding words to it. Number one, it's 5-issue limited series. That's a heck of an outfit there. I get he's cobbling together his own costume and all that, but holy smokes. Yeah, the Cable art does look really good. I have to give you that. I'm interested in that. Who was it that said? I forget. Somebody was telling me something about this series the other day that I didn't know, and of course I've slept since then and I don't remember. But no, this series looks really, really solid, and I'm interested in that. It looks, yeah, absolutely. Uh, Looks like something out of Airbender. You are not wrong there. Secret webbing, secret webbing. All of the Marvel annuals this year have been leading into this Infinity Watch. I don't know. I haven't been a huge fan of it, but something I am curious about is this right here. Certainly looks like Phil Coulson from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I'm really wondering if that's who that is. Because I like me some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I wish that they would do something better with it. A bit sad that they've just chosen to toss it out. If you're a fan of the TVA is finally getting their own 5-issue limited series. So you get these variants out here. You got Miss Minutes. That looks interesting. I think that's going to be fun. Um, so we'll see what's happening here. I have not. I was busy, busy, busy all day today. I haven't seen any of the announcements coming out of New York Comic Con. So yeah, hit us up. Tell us what some of those things are if you want, because that I'm definitely interested to know. For all the viewers of our channel here, I can tell you something that was supposed to be announced at New York Comic Con, but it actually got announced a few weeks early somehow, some way. But Mark Spears, who did the Mark Spears Monsters comic, and he's going to continue to do that. Oh, okay. Ultimate Wolverine series. I could get on board with that. Yeah, yeah. I would like to see. I'm curious who's writing and drawing that. But yes, that's interesting to me. Uh, anyway, Mark Spears, who has his Mark Spears Monsters comic, all that, and we've got some good news on that front. We'll tell you about in a second too. Um, he had pitched an idea to Todd McFarlane a year and a half, 2 years ago, and Todd liked it, kind of waffled on it for a little bit, but ultimately decided he wants to go forward with it, and it's something that they want to do. So they're going to be doing a Spawn 77 uh, comic book. The deal is Mark Spears is going to do the art, but Todd McFarlane is writing it. So picture Mark's style with all those colors and all that stuff, but in a 1977 setting with all of the colors, the hair, all that stuff. That should be really interesting. Uh, Jed McKay led lead-in miniseries to One World Under Doom. That's interesting. I really like Jed McKay. I loved what he has done on Moon Knight. Like love, love, love. I mean, he's done amazing stuff. Some of his books, some of his Avengers stuff has been really good. Um, Blood Hunters uh, should have never been billed as the big thing that it was billed as. And I know he didn't come in and say, "Hey, Marvel, you should build this comic I want to write as this big thing." I got the impression that he said, "Hey, here's this idea for this story I want to do." And Marvel said, "Well, we should expand that to the whole Marvel universe and we should make it this big thing." And I think they blew it up into something that it wasn't supposed to be. Uh, but that didn't wow anybody long term, which is a problem. Todd didn't want to pick up. He does not. He just wants to do a cover every now and again and be done with it. But this was an idea that was pitched by Mark to Todd, with the caveat that Todd had to write it. Um, so he wanted Todd McFarlane's name on there, and which I think was smart. Um, but yeah, so we'll see. Maybe Todd will do a variant cover or something. Lord only knows what we'll find out there. For anybody who's keeping up with the kid versions of characters, we have Kid Pool and Spider Boy and Super Soakers. Not really all that interested myself, but somebody is going to love that. Apparently, the sales on Helverine, the Ghost Rider Wolverine crossover, have been good enough that Helverine is getting his own theoretically ongoing series. We'll see. We shall see. It's not a bad idea. It looks cool. We'll just have to see how it turns out. It might be great, might be terrible. I will say, for anybody who doesn't know, if you look here, the claws on Helverine, you got two claws coming out the top of the wrist and one claw coming out from the bottom. So that's not Logan. For anybody who thought it was Logan, that's not Logan. This is like from the Dark Avengers era Wolverine, and I forget his name, but just really didn't care. No, they're saying it is Logan, but he's resurrected as something. I don't know. Now, this is a book I am excited about because this is cool. Hell Hunters. This is what if Ghost Rider in the middle of World War II. Come on, camera, focus. Well, it's really not wanting to focus. That's unfortunate. But anyway, this is Hell Hunters. It's Dokken. That's what I was trying to think of. Thank you, Nate. Anyway, just picture a Ghost Rider hanging out with Sergeant Fury and the Howling Commandos and Captain America, and apparently Wolverine is there too. That's going to be a fun book, y'all. That's just going to be good. What's not to love about that? Hell Hunters is going to be fun. It's a 5-issue limited series, and I think that's going to be a hoot. Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I think it very much has that feel to it. It still just feels very strange to me. Like, why does it exist? But no, it wasn't bad. It's just weird, and I'm clearly not the target audience, and I think that's part of it is me just getting over myself a little bit and saying this is for somebody else, and I hope they enjoy it. We have not talked about that yet. I have that in my pile. I read a preview of it and I didn't love it. But that I don't always love reading things in the electronic preview style that they send us, the retailer previews. And I think that may have played a role in it because the artwork looked cool. But the concept of Batman Full Moon is Batman versus werewolf, essentially. And the story just didn't really like grab me like I was hoping it would. I will say that the cover is a glow in the dark cover that looks awesome. Really, really interested in that. There is, of course, and this is a fun, ironic twist here. There is Ultimate Universe starring Ultimate Nick Fury with whatever the heck that symbol is on his arm there. That's weird. But Ultimate Nick Fury is old school, classic Marvel Universe Nick Fury, which is just funny because the Ultimate Universe is what introduced us to the Samuel L. Jackson version of Nick Fury. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Scrolling through. What do you guys think about West Coast Avengers? Have y'all looked at that one at all? It hasn't come out yet, but #1 is supposed to come out next month. And it's an interesting team. Like Ultron is on the team. That's weird. But it also has Firestar on the team, and I always liked Firestar, and I hate that we haven't seen much of her for ever and ever and ever. There is a Sabretooth 5-issue limited series coming out called Sabretooth, The Dead Don't Talk. He's ready for his close-up. I don't know. I've always liked Sabretooth too, so we'll see. Yeah, Vicarious does look like an interesting book. I suspect it's going to be a weird one, but it does look good. Not going to lie about that. Let's see. Anything else that's coming out new series-wise that's got me excited for something? There's the usual Christmas books and things like that. But we'll see what comes of that. And that appears to be it for Marvel. The rest of these are all... I guess the first issue of the new Iron Man book is coming out really soon, because this is number 3 that they're advertising, and that means number 2 is going to be out in November, which means number 1 has got to be out in the next week or two. And I gotta say, this take on Iron Man, where he's carrying the humongous like anime style swords and stuff like that, I don't know, it seems weird as all get out, but it also looks awesome. That artwork is beautiful. So yeah, I'm interested in checking that out. I will be giving that a look. Daredevil's been great. Let's see. Oh yeah, here you go. Here's you a holiday special book. You can't go wrong with that. Impossible. Alligator Loki, the Christmas special. The things that get greenlit sometimes, I'm like, where did this come from? I don't know. And then just because these covers are always gorgeous, Alien Paradiso #1. I mean, look at that. So minimalist, so awesome. Totally dig it. Very, very cool. So that's a preview of some of the stuff coming out in December. And I guess the last thing to really talk about tonight is next week's show. Next week's show is going to be a good one. We have comic book writer David Pepose coming on the show. He has written so many things. Among them, he wrote the Moon Knight City of the Dead story. That was a 6-issue limited series. It was fantastic. It came out perfectly timed with number 25 and was completely synced up with Moon Knight 25 in a beautiful way. Really, really good story. He wrote the new Punisher series, starring the guy from S.H.I.E.L.D. instead of Frank Castle. Very well done, very interesting, nicely told story. He's writing the new Space Ghost book, which has been great. Space Ghost! But he's going to be on the show next week, and we're really looking forward to talking to him. So definitely tune in next week, hang out with us, and hear what David Pepose has to say about his projects that he's working on, what he's got coming out downstream, all that stuff. Should be pretty great. But I appreciate you guys sticking with me tonight when it's just me, Bob, and Lonesome. Feels kind of weird not having Alan to bounce stuff back and forth with, but thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great night. Hit the like button, all that stuff. It really does help us quite a bit. And we are going to try and catch you guys next time. Well, if we don't see you up at the shop before then, we'll see you next Thursday when we have David Pepose on. And we are really looking forward to it. So signing out for tonight, everybody. Thank you guys. Y'all have a great night.